Listen closely. What you're about to hear isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a documented academic discovery. A discovery so dangerous the government took the documents offline. A discovery so massive it makes the Pentagon's missing $2.3 trillion look like a rounding error. This is the story of the man who found the US government's $21 trillion secret, and the silence that followed. It started with a single absurd claim. In the spring of 2017, Dr. Mark Skidmore, a professor of economics at Michigan State University, heard a rumor. He specialized in public finance, not conspiracy theories, not opinions, but the dry, boring math of government budgets. A former government official named Catherine Austin Fitz showed him a report. The report came from an official Department of Defense website, and it claimed something impossible. In fiscal year 2015, the U.S. Army had made $6.5 trillion in unsupported adjustments to its budget. Skidmore immediately understood the scale of what he was seeing. The Army's entire budget that year was only $122 billion, authorized by Congress. Unsupported adjustments was a polite accounting term for spending that no one could explain. And according to the report, those adjustments were 54 times larger than the Army's entire budget. This was not just a red flag, it was a 5-alarm fire. At first, he assumed it had to be a mistake. Maybe she meant 6.5 billion, not trillion, but he needed to see it for himself. So he found the report. It was still there, on an official Department of Defense website. Not a typo, not a miscalculation. $6.5 trillion. That was the moment an economist became a detective, and the investigation began. So now, you're the detective. You're standing beside Professor Skidmore and his team of graduate students. You have a single terrifying discovery, a $6.5 trillion anomaly. What do? You widen the net. Your first theory is simple. Maybe 2015 was a one-time accounting catastrophe. A perfect storm of errors that created an imaginary number. Case closed. Right? Wrong. Because the deeper you dig, the worse it gets. Skidmore and his team begin combing through government websites, especially reports from the Office of Inspector General. They search for similar findings going back to 1998. They download thousands of pages of original government documents. And what they uncover transforms a strange investigation into something far darker. These unsupported adjustments were not a glitch. They were a pattern. The Army alone recorded 170 unsupported journal voucher adjustments worth $2.1 trillion. One transfer moved $800 billion from the Treasury to the Army, explained only as an adjustment. Even Department of Housing and Urban Development, a department with only a fraction of the defense budget, showed $350 billion in unsupported adjustments. And when the final tally was complete, the number was no longer 6.5 trillion. It was $21 trillion in undocumented, unexplained adjustments across the Department of Defense and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. For context, that was larger than the entire U.S. national debt at the time. It's enough money to completely fund Medicare for all. And the government's official response: silence. A story this massive needed a villain. But the villain was not a person. It was a system designed to be impossible to understand. Then something happened that turned the investigation into a national story. The government's response was silence. Skidmore repeatedly contacted the Congressional Budget Office, the Government Accountability Office, and the Office of Inspector General, the very agencies responsible for answering questions like these. Calls were returned, but no one with direct knowledge was ever made available to speak. And then, something even stranger happened. The Office of Inspector General, the agency responsible for publishing the reports, disabled access to several of the key documents detailing the unsupported adjustments. The documents disappeared from public view. They took them offline. But by then, the researchers had already downloaded and archived them. The story was out. And then came a remarkable coincidence. Just 4 days after the findings were discussed on a public news program, the Department of Defense announced the first department-wide independent financial audit in its history. Whether connected or not, the timing was impossible to ignore. But exposing a problem is not the same as solving it. Here's where a good investigator must ask a tougher question. Was this $21 trillion stolen? The answer is too terrifying for a simple yes or no. The Pentagon's own explanation, given to Congress, was that these trillions are a result of a broken property system. That the systems tracking tanks, bases, and equipment don't communicate with the systems tracking money. So, to reconcile the two, they have to legally make up numbers. They call these unsupported journal voucher adjustments. Think about that. The most powerful military on Earth has an accounting system so broken it generates trillions in imaginary numbers to balance the books. So you, the detective, are left with the most disturbing possibility of all. Theory 1. Unfathomable incompetence. A maze of 2,200 separate financial systems, some from the 1950s, so complex that no one knows where the money is, making it the perfect place to hide theft, fraud, or waste. Theory 2. The perfect weapon. What if the confusion is not a bug, but the very point of the system? A $21 trillion black hole so massive, so complex, that it acts as a gravitational force, crushing all oversight and accountability. And the man who tried to measure it? He was a tenured professor at a public university, a man with every protection in the world, and even he, after publishing his findings, has been effectively met with a wall of silence from every government agency. No subpoenas, no investigations, just an endless bureaucratic void. By the end of the investigation, the missing trillions were no longer the most disturbing part of the story. The terrifying question was no longer where the money went, but whether anyone was ever supposed to know. The Department of Defense has never passed a clean audit. It remains the only major federal agency that cannot account for its spending. And when one man with a small team of students and a stack of public documents got closer to the truth than anyone else, he was met with the most powerful weapon the government has. Not a denial, but absolute, deafening, bureaucratic silence. But wait. There is one more secret. A single transaction buried deep in the data that points not to a broken system, but to a hidden economy that spans from Wall Street to Washington. A transaction that was discovered by a financial advisor who wouldn't take "it's classified" for an answer. And that is a story for our next investigation.